Welcome back to our channel, soap fans. Today is a fantastic day to dive deep into the heart of Port Charles, and we have an incredibly intense breakdown ready for you. Let's get right into it. And I just have to scream about this. My hands are literally shaking as I sit down to type this out because I absolutely cannot stay quiet about what General Hospital just did in that Wyndemere basement. I am not calmly reviewing this episode. I am reacting with pure, unadulterated fire and awe. We need to talk about Liesl Obrecht, Jocelyn Jacks, and the absolute masterclass in psychological terror that Ross Cullum and Jen Sidwell just unleashed. Am I supposed to pretend that this makes sense for my blood pressure? Because let me tell you, this was one of the most viscerally terrifying, emotionally exhausting, and brilliantly executed sequences I have seen on daytime television in years. Start to finish, this was a relentless assault on the senses, and it completely shattered the standard soap opera formula. Let me set the scene and break down exactly why this worked so flawlessly. We are plunged into the suffocating, dark, claustrophobic underbelly of Wyndemere. The lighting is practically non-existent, casting these harsh, desperate shadows across Liesl's face as she grips those pliers. She is staring down a chaotic, tangled mess of wires, and the tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife. But it is not just the physical trap that makes this scene a masterpiece. It is the auditory nightmare Jocelyn is unraveling. She is screaming, her voice cracking with a kind of raw primal terror that we rarely see from her. She is second-guessing Liesl, demanding to know if she is sure about the wires, her panic bouncing off the stone walls. The pacing here is agonizingly perfect. The scriptwriters didn't rush the moment, they let the panic breathe. They let us feel the suffocating weight of the earth above them, trapping them in a tomb of Sidwell's design. Can we be honest about this for a second? The show is finally doing something profound with Jocelyn Jacks. For years, she has possessed that signature Carly Spencer invincibility, that fiery, headstrong spirit that charges into danger and somehow always lands on her feet. But not this time. The writers have made a bold, undeniable choice to break her. This isn't just fear, this is a complete psychological collapse. We are watching a historical parallel to Anna Devane's tragic psychological torment at the hands of the WSB, and it is horrifying to witness. Jocelyn's mind is fracturing under the weight of her captivity. Every scream, every frantic question she hurls at Liesl is the sound of a young woman losing her grip on reality. It is a brilliant, necessary deconstruction of her character. You cannot put a character through the kind of hell Cullum and Sidwell have orchestrated and expect her to walk out with just a few scratches. The writers are committing to the trauma, and I am absolutely here for it. And then comes the moment that genuinely made my heart stop. The red wire. In any generic paint-by-numbers soap storyline, cutting the red wire is the moment of salvation. The heavy door clicks open, the dramatic music swells, and our heroes stumble into the daylight. But not today. So Liesl snips the wire, and instead of freedom, we get the absolute most chilling sound imaginable. A dry, mechanical countdown. Beep, beep, beep. The sheer horror on Liesl's face when she realizes what she has done is a masterclass in silent acting. Kathleen Gotti deserves every award for that exact second of realization. She doesn't have to say a word for us to understand the magnitude of the trap. Jen Sidwell didn't just lock them in. He rigged a secret self-destruct mechanism specifically designed as a death trap for anyone desperate enough to try and escape. It is sadistic. It is brilliant. It subverts every expectation we have as viewers who know the rhythm of GH. I mean, honestly, we have to talk about the sheer, unadulterated evil of Cullum and Sidwell. These aren't your standard mustache-twirling Port Charles villains who monologue about their evil plans before getting punched out by Sonny Corinthos. These men represent the darkest, most corrupt, unchecked power of the WSB. They are playing a psychological game that is so far beyond the usual mob warfare. The fact that Sidwell rigged a trap that punishes the very instinct to survive, that turns hope into a literal ticking time bomb, shows a level of cruelty that elevates the stakes of this entire show. It proves that the threat they pose is not just physical, it is existential. They want their victims to know they are completely, utterly powerless before they destroy them. Because now, Liesl and Jocelyn are faced with an impossible, nightmarish choice. The countdown is echoing in the dark, and their only conceivable exit is suddenly blocked by a lethal, high-voltage electrical field. It is a literal damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. Stay in the basement and be vaporized by the explosion, or risk a gruesome death by electrocution trying to force a way out. This is where soap storytelling transcends its genre and becomes high-stakes thriller material. The writers have backed them into a corner with no convenient trapdoor, no sudden rescue from Jason Morgan dropping from the ceiling. It is just two women, the ticking clock and the crackling blue death of the electrical field. The narrative claustrophobia is so intense, it is almost hard to watch, and I applaud the writers for refusing to take the easy way out. But the absolute breaking point, the moment that pushes this scene from thrilling to utterly devastating, is Jocelyn's physical reaction. The psychological terror finally overrides her nervous system. The countdown, the sparks, the realization of impending death, it all culminates in a severe, violent psychological seizure. Jocelyn collapses. She is no longer just panicking. Her body and mind are shutting down in a catastrophic trauma response. Am I supposed to pretend that this didn't leave me breathless? Eden McCoy's performance here is nothing short of harrowing. To see this vibrant, fierce young woman reduced to a convulsing, helpless state on the cold stone floor of Wyndemere is a gut punch. It forces the narrative into a terrifying bottleneck. Jocelyn cannot save herself. She cannot run. She cannot even stand. The entire weight of survival now rests solely on the shoulders of Liesl Obrecht. Let me say this clearly. Liesl Obrecht is the beating heart of this storyline, and what she does next cements her legacy as one of the greatest, most complex characters in the history of General Hospital. Think about the journey this woman has been on. From a mad scientist and a ruthless villain to a fiercely protective, tragic mother figure. She has lost Nathan. She has lost Britt. She has just been subjected to the sick, twisted revelation that Cassius Faison is parading around with her dead son's face. She has been stripped of everything, battered by grief, and forced into this dungeon to finish her deceased daughter's work. She has every reason to be bitter, to be selfish, to give up. But in this dark, ticking tomb, Liesl is forced to look at a seizing, broken Jocelyn Jacks, and she makes a choice that redefines her entire existence. The layers of soap history embedded in this dynamic are staggering. We all know the history between Liesl and Carly Spencer. There is no love lost there. Carly is the woman who has everything. Liesl has lost a sprawling family, power, children who are still breathing. And yet, in the ultimate moment of truth, Liesl does not see Carly's daughter as an enemy or a burden. She sees a child in need. She sees a life that has not yet been fully lived. The irony of Liesl Obrecht, the former terror of Port Charles, stepping up to make the ultimate sacrifice to save Carly Spencer's beloved daughter, is poetic justice of the highest order. It is the kind of character evolution that you can only achieve after years and years of meticulous storytelling. It is not a sudden, out-of-character shift. It is the culmination of Liesl's journey toward redemption. And when Liesl makes her move, it is with a fierce, maternal determination that completely shattered me. The countdown is in its final seconds. The electrical field is crackling. Liesl realizes that the only way to get Jocelyn through the voltage is to absorb the brunt of it herself. To act as a human shield against the lethal current. The camera captures this agonizing look of resolve on Kathleen Gotti's face. It is a silent goodbye. It is an acknowledgement that she is trading her life for Jocelyn's. When she grabs Jocelyn's seizing body and forces them toward the only exit, throwing her own body into the path of the electricity, I was practically screaming at my screen. The sheer physical and emotional force of that sacrifice is something that will be burned into the memory of GH fans for decades. Then, the explosion. The sensory overload of the blast is executed with cinematic perfection. The deafening roar, the violently shaking camera, the blinding flash of fire and debris that consumes the Wyndemere basement. It is not just a cheap pyrotechnic display. It is the physical manifestation of the destruction that Cullum and Sidwell have brought to Port Charles. The shockwave of that explosion is going to ripple through every single family in this town. It leaves us staring at our screens, breathless, wondering who survived, how badly they are burned, and what the hell is going to happen next. The writers didn't just end an episode, they detonated a nuclear bomb in the middle of the narrative, completely resetting the stakes for everyone involved. I have watched this show through countless hostage crises, explosions, and villainous traps. I remember the Metro Court crisis. I remember the old Cassadine dungeon storylines with Helena and Stavros. I remember Caesar Faison's sick games. But I am telling you with absolute conviction that this trap and this sacrifice hit harder than almost anything we have seen in recent memory. Why? Because it was grounded in deep, inescapable character truth. It wasn't just action for the sake of action. It was the tragic intersection of Jocelyn's breaking point and Liesel's redemption. The writers didn't rely on a magical rescue. They relied on the raw, sacrificial love of a grieving mother who decided that no one else was going to die on her watch, even if it meant giving up her own life. So what happens now? I am terrified, and frankly, I am furious at the prospect of losing Liesel Obrecht. If she dies from this, the fallout is going to be apocalyptic. Carly is going to tear Port Charles apart with her bare hands when she finds out what happened to her daughter and who saved her. The WSB is going to face a reckoning, the likes of which they have never seen. But even as I sit here, furious and anxious, I have to stand up and applaud the sheer audacity of the writers. They took a massive swing. They pushed these characters to the absolute brink, and they delivered a masterpiece of suspense and tragedy. This is what soap storytelling is supposed to be. It is supposed to make you scream, cry, and demand the next episode immediately. General Hospital just proved that when they fully commit to the emotional truth of their characters, they are absolutely untouchable.